who is the Manager for Credit Info and Research at the National Credit Regulator. Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you on Morning Live.
Good morning, Leanne, and thanks for having me.
All right, so how bad is the situation?
Well, if I can just paint a picture for you, we released statistics in December, and that was for the quarter ended September of last year. And we have about 20.3 million credit active consumers in this country. And the picture we saw was that 52% of all consumers were in good standing. Now, it basically means, you know, a consumer is not more than 2 months behind in areas.
Okay.
But a shocking 48% had what we term impaired records. Now, these guys basically are 3 months or more behind in payments. They've got judgments. They've got admin orders. So, yeah, you can see a lot of people are quite, you know, under stress.
Yeah, and this was done at the end of last year.
So
this wasn't even accounted for the December period and the spending when people, like we were discussing off air, people seem to lose their minds over December.
You know, the problem is there's often pressure in December to give gifts, you know, to go on holiday, to spend excessively. But then come January, you know, you have to pay for school fees, there's registration fees, there's tuition fees, there's textbooks. And consumers typically tend to then solve the problem by going out and getting more credit. Now, that is not a solution. You know, we always urge consumers to say, you know, spend wisely in December, but then borrow wisely in January, you know, because then what decisions you take in January tend to set the tone for the rest of the year.
Yeah, they certainly do. But let's talk about this 48% that we're talking about with impaired records, as you call them. What form of assistance is out there for people that fall into this bracket?
You know, the first port of call should be when I see that I'm going to go into distress, because it's not something that tends to hit you overnight. You can see 2, 3 months, even 6 months, you know, ahead of time to see, you know, if I continue like this, I'm going to get into trouble. So the first thing is to contact your credit providers. You know, most of them are quite willing to assist a consumer who's going through a rough patch. So do not hide and think the problem is going to go away. You know, when they call you, then you don't answer your phone. Because if I can just say that for every one of those 20 million consumers, each and every month, the credit providers load information about you at the credit bureaus. So even if you don't answer your phone, you abscond on your agreements, that will be loaded against your profile at the bureaus.
Yeah. What, you know, there has been talk around government circles about scrapping debt of people. Is this a possibility? Do people live by this sort of hope that perhaps the debt will be scrapped? Just enlighten us.
Okay, what you're referring to is what is termed the removal of adverse information project. Now, like I said, of those 20 million credit active consumers, that basically means each and every one of us, our payment profile, our performance, if I can put it like that, is loaded every month at the bureaus. So now this project is more around removing certain classes of information. It's not all the information.
Okay.
But most importantly, even if the information were to be removed, your obligations to repay your debts as a consumer would still remain.
Yeah, that's what's so important.
That's the crux of it.
So what are we looking at? I mean, is this something that's happening now, or is it something in the pipeline that could happen?
That is something that is in the pipeline that could happen. But what I want to urge consumers is to say, even if it does happen, consumers will benefit when they repay their debts. For example, one of the proposals is to say that, you know, once a consumer settles a judgment, for instance, we know that currently if you have a judgment, it will stay for 5 years. Under the proposal, as soon as you settle your judgment, then the information is removed. But if you do not settle your debt, then the information will stay. So you still need to pay your debts.
All right. Louisa Hetchisani giving us some great advice. Pay your debt. I think that's one lesson to learn. And answer that phone call, because I know people ignore it. People looking for money and you ignore it. You quickly turn it on silent and ignore it. Don't. They can help you. Manager of the Credit Info and Research at the National Credit Regulator, thanks for helping.
Thank you so much.
All right.